It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm Tim Niederreiter. This is episode 90, and I think it'll be regardless of when you're hearing this, it's the dark days here. But I'm being in here where I live. It's pitch black, and it's that time of year, the end of the year. But I also have a guest, as always. So McKensie Stewart, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on the show, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Wow. Okay. Well, I am a host of the Writer's Edge radio show, and where I interview authors and we talk from an array of different subjects. We talk about their work. I talk to reviewers, I talk to bloggers, I talk to publicists, I talk to many different people who contribute to the world of writing. And I think that's very important because there's so many people that started writing just like I did that had no clue, just like I did, had no clue about where to go, where to start, what to even research into, really finding my way in the whole writing world. And so I decided to create that particular show to give people that particular form that they can definitely listen, ask questions about writing. And so that's why I started that particular show. So I actually wrote the book that's called Shattered, an Emily Graham novel. It is the very first book in its series. And the book is, basically in the genre of murder mystery. And it's about Emily, who is really confused about if she married the right person. And, she's looking back, the book starts where she's looking back on where she is now and thinking, if I had made a different decision, where would my life be at this particular point? And so she ended up marrying, not that she is living in any shabby means at all. I mean, she married this guy who's the senator for the state of Pennsylvania, Brendan Graham. And his mother is quite controlling, and she really controls everything that happens in her life. And she really shapes the future for for the family. But, there's definitely some twists and turns in the book. There are some things where Emily reaches back and she tries to find the person who she considers her true love. And there are some obstacles, some things that happen that really shatter any opportunity for them to get back together. So you have to, read the book and go on the twists and turns as Emily tried to uncover some things that happened in her past.
Awesome. So that's kind of psychological domestic thriller with a little. I mean, are there any political thriller elements in there? Because she's married to a senator.
You know what? The political part of the book is very minimal, other than his mother wanting her dream of him to become president. And so her husband, his name is Wellington, and he's the attorney general. And so she didn't get what she felt like she could have gotten from Wellington. So now she's focused all her attention because she wanted Wellington to aspire to greatness in her mind to become president. So she didn't get that out of him. So now she's trying to groom her son. And when I say she's trying to groom her son, he has some, he and Emily, they've had some challenges in their past. And one of the things that they had something very traumatic to happen when they were in college to them. And it really turned him on a downward spiral. He is now, into, some, bad habits. He has some drugs, some booze, some escorts. And with his mother wanting him to be president, she is trying to help him get out of all those situations because he finds himself intertwined in all these horrible situations. And so the mother, being as crafty as she is, she has a helper. And the helper, his name is Gregory, which basically, in some worlds, you can call him a hitman. And so he kind of cleans things up, for Brendan so that he looks as crisp as he does when he's walking through the halls of the Capitol. So,
oh boy, yeah. So there's all sorts of shady doings going on about there.
Absolutely, there's about 6 or 7 people that die in the mix, and some people are rooting for other people, and so it gets a little twisty turny in the book.
No, that sounds really cool. I have not read a lot of thrillers in that sort of vein. I'm more of the I obviously write a lot of science fiction and fantasy, and that's kind of what I read. Mm-hmm. But with the thrillers I have read are probably only some of the biggest, like Relic by it was co-authored. It was I always forget, Lincoln Child and something. Yeah, I can't remember the author's names. I'm terrible, but that book was really cool. And I mean, I've read a bunch of Dan Brown books when I was younger, but so my what I'm getting at here is my knowledge of the thriller genre is pretty minimal.
Yeah.
But I respect a lot of those books because they can go kind of extreme places in a fairly realistic setting. A setting that feels more down to earth or at home for the people who read it.
Yeah, and the majority of the book takes place in Philadelphia, and so you have Catherine, who is literally running down the street with her designer shoes in her hand, and she's trying to get away from Gregory. And so you really get the feel of the city, the feel of the street, the feel of the people who are watching this person run down the street, and so. She's literally like running for her life. And so, you really do get the feel of that. I knew that the book would be a series. And so right now, what I'm doing now is finishing up the second book in the series. And loosely, I'm going to call it Deception. And I say loosely because the title has changed so many times. And but it's going to be Deception. Whatever the title is, it's going to be an Emily Graham novel. And so there are some things that happen in New York City, where a crime happened, and so I purposefully left some evidence, hanging around, and so now the book, picks up where we're trying to uncover, some of those clues, and you have a couple detectives that are working on that, and so the book pretty much moves very fast paced from there.
Okay, cool. And you're working on that now then?
I'm working. I am literally, my deadline is the end of the year, and I am literally putting the finishing touches on it. So I'm polishing up. I already have the ending. There's some things I have to add in between, but it's almost ready.
Nice. Do you write? So you say you have to add things in between. Do you write like IOU scenes? Because I've done that before. That's kind of an interesting thing to me, anyway. Like, I owe you one ending. I've done that before.
Well, so here's the thing. I come up with my ideas, and so for this particular, when I wrote the first book, I knew I had those clues. So I had to figure out how I was going to start the book. And so basically, this particular book starts with the funeral scene. Somebody dies in the first book. And so nobody knows like who killed the person. So we're in a funeral car, and, you have people thinking like, I wonder if, and you have the other person, I think she did it. So you have these thoughts going on as they're moving towards the actual funeral. And so that's how this book actually starts. But I write and I write and I write as the ideas come to me.
Mm.
And then it comes a place where I don't know what I'm writing to. So I stop. I'm like, okay, I can't write forever. So it's like, what am I going to do? So I stop. And then all of a sudden, it could be a day that I stop writing. It could be 2 days that I stop writing. It could be a week. And then I figure out this is how this book is going to end. And I write the ending. And then wherever I left off, which is pretty much near the end, I fill in the other pieces so that the book makes sense.
Okay.
Because my book because the way I write, I tell you what's happening now, and then I give you a backstory.
Okay.
And so that's why that particular type of writing works for me. Now, after I finish up this book, I'm going to stretch myself to write a novella. And, I have to be very on point. So, there's not going to be a whole lot of, going back, in time to do that. I'll definitely have to pace the book and pace it so that I can reach, that particular word count, for that particular type of book. Because somebody at the end of this book goes on the run. And so my thought is I want to write a very short novella to really explore this particular character. I want to have this to be, something that I can actually use to market, to show people my writing, to show people my writing style. Maybe I'll offer it for free or 99 cents, but I want it to do something very short, just so people can understand who McKensie Stewart is and her writing and what she likes to write.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I guess I've kind of done that with this series of novellas I've been publishing recently, but as well. But I found that writing short is actually kind of, since I've now done it for an extended period of time, I think my last 7 or 8 projects were novellas. And I've only started, but the next book I'm coming out with is a novel. It's a full length book, but it's kind of interesting how the reward is smaller for these stories, right? You're right. And it works the same way as a reader, for me, at least, as it does as a writer, where, it's great to read a short story or a novella, and it's fine to write one too, but it's less of an extreme task for me. But it's interesting because it's not, because it takes a lot less time.
Well, yeah, it takes a lot less time, but you have to be such a writer that's on point to really get your point across in such a short period of time. And I think that is a craft not everybody can do. And I'm going to stretch myself to see if I can actually do that. But that's my goal. I already know, how the first part of this novella is going to start based off of how the book ends. And so I already know that, this person is going to kind of go through town and, do what they were doing, pretty much in this particular book, but I'm going to expand on their character just a little bit more. So, I think it's going to be fun. It definitely will expand me as a writer. And that's what I always want to do, is to really push myself, a little each time that I actually write something.
Yeah, and given the number of writers you talk to on your radio show, I'd say you probably have a lot of techniques you can employ. Depending on how much craft you're picking up there.
I'm going to tell you, I actually, definitely, as I mentioned in the opening, started the show to give back and to give people, a place to actually start. But every single week that I host my show, I have so many people who give to me so much information, that, helps me to grow. And then I'm able to share that whenever I'm talking to aspiring, authors, to really give them that information. So yeah, I truly, 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 feel very lucky to, have the show and to be able to give back to the community.
Yeah, great. I've really enjoyed my guest appearances on your show as well. I must say, but as for the continuing learning, I think that's just an important aspect for all writers, is that no matter how far you go, you're always there's always more to learn, and that's just life. But it definitely applies to writing, as writing is a very deep skill.
Yes. And it's one of those kind of things that everybody wants to do it, but everybody can't. And I say they can't because they're not willing to put in the dedication, the legwork, the time, the opportunity cost, right? So you have to give up something in order to be able to write. You have to give up going to the movies. You have to on a Saturday night, you have to give up, going or hanging out with your friends to be on a radio show, right?
Or a podcast. Yeah.
A podcast. So, those are those types of trade-offs that you have to do in order to get the word out about who you are, about your writing. And it's, it's not cut out for everybody.
Yeah, it's true. And it's kind of true of a lot of, as well, of other tasks. But in writing, it's very stark because writing's such a solitary activity for the most part. And it requires mostly all it asks for is your time.
Absolutely.
And that is why it's a very simple kind of way to look. It's a way to see it, and that's a good way to see it, because when you have a task that doesn't have any physical requirements, and you can do pretty much for your entire life if you keep your hands in shape or can dictate.
Mm-hmm.
The cost is really, it can become truly a huge amount of time that you invest in this. I kind of have invested a lot of time in it. I'm sure you have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting the story out, out from your head, right? So putting it down on paper, that's one aspect of it. And then it's the constant revisions. And so you want to, read it again, and you want to read it again. And then you have to read the whole story, a couple times before you actually send it to somebody to actually, be a beta reader or somebody to edit it for you. So yeah, it's a lot of time. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that commitment, I mean, most of the books that I've released that have done better actually did take quite a while to simmer even after I wrote them, or they were edited over the course of a year or two. Or I edited a set of books over a year or two. So even though it doesn't take me that long in hours to produce a book, it can take quite a while to actually get the book released. So there's a lot of effort that goes into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Above and beyond just the writing, the rough draft. That's for sure. Well, as for that, I mean, because you have the radio show and that sort of thing, do you find it hard to balance your time with the writing and other projects you do? Yes. I'll take that as a yes.
Right? Yeah. Well, because, I do have a full-time job, and so I balance the writing in between the full-time job. So then I balance the writing in between the radio show. And so now the writing actually shrinks, a lot to accommodate, what I need to do to prepare for the radio show. So yeah. So, it's one of those kind of things, the end of the year is approaching. And so, some of my other obligations are shrinking. And so it gives me the opportunity to, really focus on finishing up this one particular project. And then what I always do, once I get it out of my hand to the actual editor who's going to edit my work, then that's when I go back to my unfinished work. So I have, so many folders of unfinished work. So I will go back to, some of my unfinished work, and then I'll start working on that. And then once I get the information from the editor, I'll make my revisions, add a little bit more, take some out, then I'll send it back to the editor. Then I will, resume back to my project. So there's really, there's always something that I'm actually writing and that I'm actually doing in, being able to publish a book.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. You gotta keep those plates spinning, I guess, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that that's kind of how it's been working for me lately since I finally started putting the time in that I really should be to get the work. I mean, I know it's weird how inconsistent. I feel like I'm a really inconsistent writer. Other people tell me I'm not. It's but it's one of those challenges because there's no matter how much time you have as a writer, it can be challenging to use it effectively. Even if it's not much, then it's still challenging. So then you're probably tired from other work, from your day job. That it's tough to get there sometimes. And I want to. I guess so. I guess it's just my way of saying stick with it, and you can make time if you really care about writing, and you'll find the time eventually.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
All right. So, anything else you want to say about your work so far?
Yeah, I just would like for, everybody to go out and, you can go on, Amazon and read excerpts for free and see.
A good way to get,
absolutely.
Good way to check on work.
Yeah, to check me out, to check out my writing. I try to be I'm very deliberate and very detailed in, what I write about. And it's really not funny, but, I had a friend, I asked him, I said, hey, did you read the book? Cause, he came to my book signing and everything. And so, he said, I started it, but I couldn't finish. And I was like, oh my gosh, like why? So I'm all concerned. Yeah. And he said, the way you described Ms. Pearl in the book reminded me of my mother, and his mother had just passed away. And he said he had to stop because everything that I described about Ms. Pearl reminded him of his mother, and he had to stop. And so, to that, very, very real, like people that are in the book, people can definitely relate to them. And you really feel what they're actually feeling at the time that you're actually reading the book. So go out and read the free excerpt on Amazon, and makes a great Christmas gift.
Indeed it does. Though probably a gift for all occasions. This show will probably be out a little after Christmas. I'm not sure exactly. But anyway, it's one of the it's one of those it's one of those time shift things that happens in podcasting. But so where can people find your work? I mean, I think we already kind of went over that, but is there anywhere else people should go to check you out?
Absolutely. So I mentioned Amazon. So you can either get the, the ebook version of it. You can get a hardback. Yeah. So I went bold. I went to the hard copy, and also the paperback, and then also Barnes and Noble. The book can be found on Kobo as well. And I found out that my book is on Walmart online. So you can find it there as well.
Yes. Widespread publication. Awesome.
Absolutely.
So find that book wherever books can be found almost at this point. That's a lot of places. So, and as for this show, you can find us at mentalcellarpublications.com. You can find my books at amazon.com because I do not have widespread distribution at this point, but we will see in the future. And you can, I think that's it. Oh, follow me on Twitter. I'm at TNeedWriter, and you can like my Facebook page. That's facebook.com/TimNeedWriter. Thanks for listening, everybody. And thanks for being on the show, McKensie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been a blast. Have a good one, everybody. Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.
That tears it.